Thanks for starting the recording, Clyde. Much appreciated. Hey, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whew. And when you log in, if you could go ahead and put your name and affiliation in the chat pod, that helps with attendance for the meetings. Hey, Earl, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Hey, doing good. This is a very, very nice fall weather day, so wish I could be outside all day.
That's what I'm doing, sitting outside for this.
Well, living vicariously through you, Earl. It looks lovely. It looks lovely. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ruth. How y'all doing? Hey, Tom. Hey, Ivy.
Hey.
You doing good today, Tom?
Oh yeah,
Good.
I'm in
Good.
the office, all warm.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Hey, Ivy. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. Afternoon to all.
Good. Let's see. Hey, John. How's it going? Let's see. Welcome, Arlene. Welcome, Stephen and Donna, Randall, Bruce. Hey, Karen. How's it going?
Going good.
Good, good. I feel like we haven't seen your face virtually in a while, so thank you for sharing your video today.
Hey, Rachel, can you hear me?
I sure can. Hey, John, how you doing?
This is John Clark. I had to dial in. I'm remote over here. So the 685-7415, that's me.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thanks, John. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. Hey, Fred.
Hey Rachel, how y'all doing? Sorry I'm late.
Oh, I think it's on like, we're only a couple minutes past the hour, so you're right on time as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Hello, Tara. Hey, Dietmar. Hey, Steve. Everybody doing okay? And let me see. Ross, I think that we are still waiting for Bridget to join, but are we okay to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let's get it going.
Okie dokie.
Well, Dietmar is here just in case. I don't know if you can see me or not.
Thanks, Dietmar. Appreciate you being here. We cannot see your video, but I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead and share my screen. Get to the top of the meeting. All righty. Oh, geez. This will take a moment to load. Okay. Well, in the meantime, my name is Rachel Sanderson, and I'm the Region 7 Watershed Coordinator. I work at Capital Region Planning Commission, and just thank you again to everybody for being here. If you haven't already, please put your name and affiliation in the chat pod. That just helps us keep kind of track of attendance. We do download the participant list for all of these as well. So if you can't get it in there because of accessibility issues, or maybe you're traveling and just listening in, that's also okay. So as always, these meetings have a really large team of individuals who help put it together. So folks from CRPC, we have Kim Marisek as well as Rochelle Trahan. So Kim is our Director of Planning. She helps to plan some of these meetings. Rochelle Trahan today will be taking notes for us, which is a huge role. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Tori Nguyen, who is our hybrid LSU LWI intern. She is also providing support for notes. She'll probably be more behind the scenes with that because she has class times that overlap with today's meeting. From OCD, we'll have Nicolette Jones and Lakeisha Hart. So thank y'all for being here with us today. We'll also have Jerry Daniels and Sam Crampton with Dewberry, as well as Clyde Verdan with Spears. So Dewberry will be providing the model update. And then Spears Group is very, very graciously supporting our technical aspects of today's meeting. So if you have any issues today at all with your with the technical side of things, so Zoom, audio, visual, put it in the chat pod and we will work with you to get that addressed through Clyde. So today's meeting, really the meat of the meeting is going to be focusing on the membership structure discussion. So I'm trying to wrap that discussion up, as well as the Region 7 modeling update that has been requested. So as a reminder, this meeting does adhere to Louisiana open meeting requirements. So that means that the public is here today. We do ask that only our steering committee members come off of mute and speak unless we are in the public comment period, which is at the end of this meeting. And you'll see 2 opportunities for that on the agenda that was sent out ahead of this meeting via our constant contact list, and also that can be found online at the website at crpcla.org. We do record all of these meetings so that we can share them as well. And there will be meetings for the proceedings of this for public record as well. So we are about to go into roll call today as well. Just as a reminder, all comments made in the chat pod are written public comments. So please note that as well. As a reminder, we do have some shared agreements with this group. And so these are ways of engagement for how we want to interact with each other. So the first is be brief and meaningful when voicing your opinion. The second is seek common ground and understanding. The third is consider what serves the benefit of the entire region. And then the last is when presenting a challenge, offer a solution. And as a reminder, we also have an idea marina. So if something comes up in discussion that's not necessarily related to the agenda topics today, but certainly is still important, then it'll go in the idea marina to revisit at a later date. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and do our roll call. And I'm just going to go in alphabetical order by parish and then by affiliation for our regional organizations. So the first that we have today is Ruth Phillips and or Ron Savoy with Ascension Parish.
Ruth Phillips is on.
Hey Ruth, thanks for joining today. Second, Tom Stevens and or Fred Rayford with EBR.
I'm here.
Tom,
Great, thanks y'all. And I know I've already said hello to folks, so this is kind of the way that we make it official. So thank you for saying hello again. James Stewart and or Joni Stone with East Louisiana. Okay. And then John Clark with Iberville Parish.
I'm here. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, John, thank you. Steve Kistler and or Mark Carroll with Livingston.
Steve Kistler is present.
Thanks for being here today, Steve. Got you down. Earl Mathern and or Stephanie Bruning with St. Charles.
Hey, this is Earl. I'm here.
Thanks, Earl. Appreciate you being here. Major Coleman and or Jeremy Williams with St. Helena. Okay. Ryan Donahue and or Ryan LaRousse for St. James.
Ryan LaRousse is here.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you being here today also. Tara Lambeth and or Renee Pasterek with St. John.
Tara's here.
Thanks, Tara. Appreciate you being here. Ross Liner and or Jay Watson with St. Tammany.
I'm here. It's Watson.
Thanks for being here, Ross. Bridget Bailey and or Melissa Coward or Missy Coward with Tangipahoa. Okay. We'll send Bridget a message just as a quick reminder.
I'm here. I just couldn't get it off of me. Sorry.
That's okay. I was thinking you've been busy lately, so I thought you might have been caught up in something. Bobby Joe Breland and or Alex Summerall of Washington.
Hey, Bobby Joe's here.
Thanks for being here today, Bobby Joe. Gary Migo and or Emily Cobb with West Feliciana.
this is Gary. I'm here.
Thanks for being here, Gary. Dietmar Reitschier and or Larry Bankston with Amy River Basin Commission.
Dietmar is here.
Thanks for being here today. Karen Zito and or Diane Bond for the Home Builders Association of Greater Baton Rouge.
Karen Zito here.
Thanks for being here, Karen. Ronnie Carter and or Kim Coates. Not hearing Ronnie or Kim. And then Ivy Matthew.
Present and accountable.
Present and accountable. All right. Great. Well, thank y'all for rolling through that. We do have quorum for today, so we should be good to go. Okay, so just wanted to say first and foremost, thank you all for being here today. We know that you have a lot of other things that are pressing your time, especially towards the end of the year, especially given everything that we've been through this year. So thank you for being here. And in the chat pod, if you'd like to, just say what dish you're most looking forward to during next week's celebrations, however you like to celebrate that time off. I really like green bean casserole. And I also want to open it up to Ross and Bridget to say thank you if they would like to, and then to also offer up their favorite dish.
Yep. Thanks for everybody being here. I don't know. Thanksgiving, that's a tough one. So much is passed around. It's just hard to choose one favorite. So I'm just going with everything.
This is Bridget. My favorite happens to be dressing because it only gets cooked usually once a year because it takes so much time. So that's pretty much my favorite.
Cool. Thanks, Bridget. Also love stuffing. I see we got apple pie, sandwich, turkey, gumbo. All right, cornbread dressing. Yes, yes, yes. Y'all are making me hungry. Glad we're having this after the lunch hour, if you will. All right. Well, thanks y'all for that. Thought that might be fun ahead of everybody's break. Okay, so we'll just do a quick recap and some updates. So with where we're at for the partnership work, where with Georgetown Climate Center for Resilient Affordable Housing. As a reminder, these activities listed here, these are not activities that we pay for. These are strategic partnerships that we have built. And so these are individuals who are offering their time through resources that they have acquired on their own. So Georgetown Climate Center, for example, they are funded by Doris Duke Foundation. Let me see, 2 weeks ago, there were a couple of visioning sessions. One of them was with local parish staffers or municipal staffers. And then the other one was with NGO folks. Those were really small groups of individuals, more like focus groups, I think. And then Georgetown has also been having students reach out to conduct one-to-one interviews with individuals across the region as well as folks who are across the Gulf South that are doing similar work that could be of interest. This is not going to be the last time that we're engaging people. We're really trying to have some initial, really, I think, more in-depth conversations to steer the direction of the work. And then we're going to be reaching out to more folks to be able to have more comprehensive conversations once we have, kind of like deliverables or documents in hand so that we can get more succinct responses. Our relationship with the environmental finance centers and that partnership work, there's a workshop that is taking place tomorrow. And really that is about, that's shifted. So that's Shrimp Boots to Pirogues, Fostering Regional Watershed Collaboration. It was initially a 2-day workshop. And we really heard from a lot of folks across the region that this week is packed. We know that SmartGo Summit is happening. We in no way, shape, or form meant to overlap that event with SmartGo Summit or other additional events that are happening and taking place. And so we really thought, okay, what are the 2 most impactful sessions that we might be able to have at this moment in time? How can we condense that? And then what else can we do to be able to shift and pivot and provide the remainder of the sessions at a later date? As a reminder, those are really, really geared towards folks who work at parish and municipal government. So if you did not receive that notice or anything, it might just be because you're not in that particular position. So the discussion will be on BRIC, as well as really kind of matching projects to funding, essentially. The EPA Resilience Roadmap work, we're working on scheduling a second advisory group meeting. And then we're also going to be catching that team up to speed with the other work from the previous 2 efforts to be able to further inform what that resilience roadmap work could look like as we look to start that process in early next year. Do any of our steering committee members have updates that they'd like to come off mute or put in the chat pod? And then if not, if there are other updates from folks that are on the call that they'd like to put in the chat pod. Any events coming up? And the SmartGo Summit is going on right now. It's an example.
The only thing I would say is get myself in this position every year, but if you have associations you belong to and CEUs are due, now's the time. So don't wait till December 31st. Just my PSA real quick.
I hear that loud and clear, Ross. Know that one from experience also. Okay. Well, great. We will go ahead and move on to the rest of today's agenda items then. So as a quick recap, just because I know that sometimes folks are maybe had never joined us before or sometimes joining us for the first time in a while, just as a reminder of where we've come from, we've really been engaging this group since mid-2020. So from August to October, I was really thinking about our vision, values, and goals, thinking about challenges and opportunities related to flooding towards the end of last year. So about a year ago from now, what kind of work the region would like to do. So specifically having those conversations driven by our steering committee. We had discussions on governance models, had initial feedback for an initial provisional governance recommendation. January through March, provisional governance recommendation was reviewed and adopted. We also discussed the round one regional project selection process and also reviewed some materials from adaptation strategies that were provided during the February or March meeting, where Steve Piku came and talked about different funding mechanisms that might be helpful for folks that are part of the steering committee to know, and also as we think about the longer term arc of the work. April to June, we voted on the round one regional selection project process. We also continued governance discussions. We adopted a governance recommendation which focused on technical assistance and capacity building across the region. And in July, through our last meeting in October, we also adopted a recommendation for the first round of regional project funding and discussed draft membership ideas. And we're also missing a discussion on the model use storage and maintenance plan that should be on here as well. So as a reminder, if you're curious about any of those, you can visit crpcla.org, click on the Region 7 Watershed tab under Previous Events Archive, and you can watch every single one of these recordings, and you can also review the meeting minutes. Okay, I think our next two slides, I'm going to toss it over to Ross and Bridget to provide us with a couple of reminders.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to start the meeting with reminders about our mission and vision. And Region 7 mission is reduce flood risk, improve floodplain management throughout the state, and maximize the natural and beneficial functions of floodplains.
And our vision is Region 7 envisions a future with less flood risk, healthier natural environments, and resilient practices that are responsive to the needs of our communities and to our evolving environment.
And as always, like to read the executive order from Governor John Bel Edwards creating this program. And I think we're in a dry time of year, and it's great. So we can really focus in on how we can improve and, work with one another throughout the region, and just, going through A through J as we move through, maybe as this, committee is in its twilight, and maybe as the legislative action next year begins, we bring it into a new season. So just promoting all the good work that all the regions have done with OCD, RPC, CRPC, and all of their staff, has been great. So looking forward to the next adventure as part of this program.
Thanks, Ross and Bridget. And I do want to note that we're just a little bit behind on our agenda, but for the membership structure discussion, we do have flexibility built in. So we do fully intend to have that full 45-minute time block. If we should need it, our time block if we should need it. So we will transition into the membership structure discussion now. And so I want to toss it over to OCD to provide us with kind of a recap and reminder of our October 19th discussion from specifically what Pat Forbes had provided to us in terms of information.
Hi, thanks everyone for letting me hop in here. Pat is with several other of our state partners in DC this week, getting the infrastructure bill signed and some other things going on surrounding the most recent disasters that we've had in the state. So in his stay, I just wanted to come Just as a reminder, I think he reiterated on the October 19th meeting that you all had that from the perspective of the Watershed Initiative, what we received from you guys, which was the regional recommendations for the framework of the governance structures, specifically from y'all's region. We have received those. I think they were passed, Rachel, on the 29th of June by y'all. And so we have all of those governing recommendations. We are at this point in a position where we are going to now move into a season where we are, putting together priorities and packages to present at the spring session. And at that point, it will be a determination made by the legislators of this great state of what comes out of that. And that will really determine how we continue to move this ball forward. So I just wanted to put that out there again for consideration, and then Rachel, hand it back over to you for continued conversation.
Thanks, Lakeisha. And I'll do a quick pause here just to see if anybody has any questions related to that or any additional information. Okay.
This is Ruth Phillips. I did have a question on if we knew who was putting together, because obviously it's 8 regions, who was putting together the governance and what format that's going to be given to the legislators, and if we would see that prior to submission.
So the way that it's set now, what's on the website, on the LWI website, as the formal version of the compilation of all of the governance structures, is the version. Do y'all need that put in the chat, or do y'all have access to that? Because I can pull that link, Ruth, and put it in the chat for you to see.
If you don't mind, just to make sure I'm looking at the same thing.
Sure thing.
I think I have it, but just to be double sure.
No, I'll do that really quickly for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that would be nice. You confused me at the very end, what we're talking about. You have a language problem, you can notice that. So can you maybe restate the end of your statement? Because I'm a little bit confused that apparently that the way I interpreted to mean that the governance that we have been talking all along is the one that is kind of floating. And I don't know, is that what you meant as the one that we're still considering, although we're not taking official action?
The one that was approved on June 29th by you guys is the final version that will be included in whatever decision. So ultimately, the decision on what comes out of the legislative package is something that is not necessarily specifically a call that the Office of Community Development will make in a vacuum. And so what will be considered in whatever is pushed in the spring is what you guys have already submitted as far as the regional governance recommendations.
And just a question, just for additional clarification, all of the other regions presented their governance structures as well, or did anyone not submit any governance structures?
No, I think we have a recommendation from every region.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions about that?
I just sent all of the governance recommendations that were submitted by the 8 regions were presented to the Watershed Council in August. And at that time, we published all of the recommendations and put them on the LWI website, like Lakeisha said. So I just put it in the chat for y'all.
Do the other regions have the governance structure similar to ours, the one that we tried to debate or to debate it in recent months, not the authorities that we talked about at the very beginning, those authorities, but the structure. Do they have the other regions have a governance structure, not authority, but structure like the one that we just discussed recently?
Let me answer that. Lakeisha, I'm not sure if you have that, breakdown in front of you right now, but maybe we can ask Rachel for our next meeting if she can do some kind of like matrix or something like that that shows what everybody else submitted, what we submitted, have it in a one pager in front of us that we can, kind of look at. But never mind, I'm looking at, well, that's not really what I was thinking about, but Lakeisha, do you have anything like that available yet?
So the document that's linked, all of the recommendations are in one document. So you'll be able to see in one document all of the recommendations, but we don't necessarily have a crosswalk with the similarities and differences across the regions.
Hey,
we
do have, we did publish a short 2-pager that kind of summarizes all of the recommendations as well, and it's also on the website. So instead of having Rachel have to redo that work, we already have something. It doesn't necessarily break down each membership structure. And I can just say broadly, everybody kind of proposed something a little bit different, but a lot of what we got were more high level recommendations. So they didn't necessarily break down the membership structure that they desired, but they said, they want kind of a mix of public official representation as well as community members. So, and you can see that in our 2-pager and then within each of the recommendations. So it wasn't super specific. It was more of a broad, and that's what we were looking for, kind of a broad roadmap or framework for how these should be organized and formed and work together. So I'm going to put that link in there as well. It's also under the LWI website. If you go to the Regional Capacity Building Grant Program, you'll see all of the watershed regions. There's links to all of the watershed region websites that Rachel and her team has one for Region 7 that they maintain. All of your resources and material are all public on the web. So I'm going to send that link too to the summary.
Sounds great. Thank you.
There's something else to consider. I've had a couple discussions with some legislators, and they think it's important that we adopt what we would like to see, because when this ball is passed to them, they would like to know what our wishes are, which is why I put this structure up for vote today, because it was made clear to me that that's what they desired prior to going into having to consider the legislation that is proposed. So that's the whole reason I put this on the agenda for today and for a vote, because that's what our legislators wanted.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. And I think we can move into that part of the agenda, if that's okay with everybody else. Okay. So I wanted to, we did after the last meeting say that we were going to offer a survey to be able to kind of hear from folks how the steering committee in particular wanted to proceed with regards to discussions about the draft membership structures. These are the responses that we got. So we had 9 responses. There were 17 steering committee members, and 8 of those individuals wanted to wait on that discussion. And then also at the same time that we had the survey live, that was whenever Steve had sent out the email, which I think that we had sent that draft membership structure out to the group to be able to see that that was a request to be put on the agenda. So that's on the agenda for today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Steve share his and share that membership structure for the purpose of discussion.
Well, I shared the membership to each of the parishes, and it was also included in our agenda. I don't know if everybody printed their agenda and the attachments. I do not have anything, I don't have the technical capability of putting it up on the screen. But a description of what I sent out was one member from each parish, a member from the Amy River Basin Commission, and one from the Pontchartrain Levee District would constitute the voting body, which is a total of 15. The non-voting body would be a resilience seat, a community representative seat, an economic development seat, environmental conservation seat, environmental justice seat, a planning seat, and a water sector seat, which would be 11. There would be a selection committee as suggested in the original options for the non-voting body. 3 members of the voting body would be on the selection committee, and 2 members from the non-voting body chosen by the each of the respective bodies. The initial selection committee, since we wouldn't have an active non-voting body until that's constituted, would be 3 from the voting body members, since that would be constituted, and 1 representative from CRPC and 1 from OCD to pick that original non-voting body.
Steve,
Steve.
can you see the screen? Steve,
Yes,
it's on the screen. As you were talking, Rachel was able to put it on the screen. So I don't know if you are on your computer or on the telephone. So I don't know, but it's on the screen.
yes, I do see it, but since I had started, I went ahead and finished. Thank you for that, Rachel.
Of course.
Is this going to be an option that's going to be considered for today's vote?
Well, that's what I had it put on the agenda specifically for a vote today. And again, the reason being is that the legislators that I've spoken to at this point think it's important for them to know how their constituency thinks when they're considering the legislation.
Rachel, or someone from OCD, when does the legislative session start?
Hey, this is Nicolette. It starts, I think, I don't know the exact day, but I think it's maybe second week of March, and then goes until June. Let me get the exact date though.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, that's, kind of just the idea I was thinking about. I don't know if I necessarily would be ready to vote on this particular document today. So knowing, how much time we have kind of gives me an idea of how to move forward.
Yeah, and I would just add too, so much could change between now and then. And so I think like Pat said, like Lakeisha also said, I think it's important that you all are considering this, but it may be something for, reasons we can't even predict yet. You may have to reconsider as a group in the future. So I just want to reiterate that so much can change between now and March, and then, March and the end of session. So I'll say that again.
Yeah, this is Fred. I just want to comment a couple of things on here. And from my standpoint, I have chatted with a few of my legislators, and they also feel like it's very important that the parish is involved in this process. And to me, not being a voting member of this process, it's very difficult, in my opinion, to be able to at least get our input in, but also have at least be able to stand up and be able to comment about what we believe are our priorities for our parish. But just as important is the fact that we're trying to work as a region to try to get with the groups and be sure that these projects that we're looking at or voting members that we're wanting to do is on the same, I guess, the same process. And to me, I think Steve's done a good job of this, and we've had a lot of discussion on it. And I know there was voting on it before, but when you look at it, and from my perspective, I just have a hard time understanding how we don't have the government, the government itself, somebody as a representative on standing there trying to back up and support our projects that we think are critical for our parish, but just as important because I think we've done a very good job working with Iberville and also Ascension Parish and trying to address a region type concept working together. It's already happening, but I still believe that we need to be involved in that decision or that voting process to get what we believe is best for our community. Who knows better than we do? Because we deal with the community, or I know for a fact, I deal with a community every day. And I hear from somebody every day about water, about drainage, about the lack of, or why we're doing this, and when is somebody going to take control? And to me, that is critical from my parish standpoint. And I appreciate the fact that Steve has gotten a group of us to talk about that, and I support it because I think that's the way it needs to be. I certainly don't have a problem with non-voting bodies, what we can do, because I think everybody needs to be involved. But if somebody's going to tell me I missed out, it better be because I wasn't involved in that process, or the mayor didn't have a choice to be able to pick somebody that wanted to be in that process. That's all I have to say.
Hey, this is Earl from St. Charles. Yeah, we had a long discussion with our administration. Our administration did reach out to our legislatures also. We will not only support this, but we would also support moving forward with this now, understanding that there may be some revisions that are required later. But we would like it to be revised from a strong standpoint. In other words, we want our opinion known at the beginning of the process, or as close to the beginning of the process as we can. So we would support it, and we would support a vote on it today.
Hi, this is Bridget Bailey. I've reviewed the suggestions and the recommendation, and I've had conversation obviously with our leadership as well. And they're definitely in support of parishes having obviously a vote. The concern that I have and brought forward is the other agency representatives besides the 13 parishes is we have more than one drainage district and a levy board in our parish, and those are not represented at all. And I know there are other parishes that actually have drainage districts that kind of govern the waterways and development standards and so on. So my concern is those are not even mentioned or recommended at all in the current structure. And there's only 2 outside the parishes that have been recommended to have voting rights, when there's other, governing bodies that oversee these waterways that are not mentioned as having, a place at the table in that regard. So that's my major concern in this respect. I agree, Earl, that we want to be proactive and we want to be heard, but I don't know, honestly, with the way the structure is at this point in time, because those other entities are excluded, that we would be able to, give a favorable recommendation. And I don't feel like we're ready to vote at this point in time or for our area, for our parish at this point.
Is there any reason or legal otherwise, since this is on the agenda, that we cannot vote on this? In other words, I would like to know a reason why we cannot vote. Is that, is it because something has not been done correctly? Because I agree that we need to move ahead with a positive attitude, that it's something on the table so our legislators have something that they can bite into when it comes to them. I don't believe that will preclude anything from happening. We got several small drainage districts in the immediate basin too. But all of these things can be easily amended at the legislature without any problem. I think that is a better alternative than not doing anything. I really do, because we're walking in only with one arm instead of two arms. And so I really believe that we should go ahead unless something legally or otherwise that I don't know precludes us from voting. I agree that we should go ahead and move on that.
Well, I appreciate the comment too about other entities not being included, but you have to look at, because as you indicated, the drainage districts, we have 4 in Livingston Parish also. When you have 13 parishes and you have, those different entities that are contained within the parish, it's up to that parish representative to represent the parish's interest. And, that would be up to that parish representative to have conversations with, invite as the public for comment, those entities that are contained within. But if we started including all those entities within each of the parish, then we'd end up with something unwieldy. So we do have each of the parishes representative, and it would be up to that member to gather the information they need to represent their constituents effectively. And so at the appropriate time, I am going to make a motion to adopt this as our recommended governing body. And I'll wait for Rachel to signal to me when that appropriate time to make that motion will be.
Steve,
Yeah,
I do, because I know it's very, it's every parish has several different drainage districts, and I hear that. My concern though is there's one levy district that's included in your structure for voting membership, and there's more than one levy district also throughout this region, and there's not any identification for those other districts, levy districts, to have a say either. And that's my concern, is that we're picking and choosing, it appears, maybe rather than the 15 voting members, you have one of those voting memberships of a represented district, drainage district among any of the parishes, and the other be one of the levy districts or basin foundation, because you've got like Pontchartrain Basin Foundation that's now Pontchartrain Conservatory, that also isn't mentioned as having a seat at the table or aspect and oversight. That's my concern. Yeah, because I think we're excluding and we're specifying when maybe we give the opportunity for those other governing bodies to have a voting membership, but it could be a roundtable aspect rather than it being prescribed.
Yeah, Bridget, I have the same thoughts. 13 from each parish, yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, that's real clear, real easy. ARBC and Pontchartrain Levy District, why those two are included. DMAR's on this panel, I get it. Pontchartrain Levy District, that's skewed more towards the west side. So yeah, there's a concern there.
So this is Ruth Phillips with Ascension Parish. So kind of taking a step back and listening to what everyone has said and raised some of their concerns. I actually would propose an amended version to vote on for this governing body that makes it just one member from each parish at this time until it can be further decided on what river basins, levee districts, drainage districts, and set some rules to that. But I think all of us, or at least I'm going to speak on behalf of Ascension and quite a few other that I've heard, feel that our parishes should have a seat at the table for voting. And I would like to see that go forward. While the legislation can happen, anything can happen with that. If we don't say on the front side what we want, we're very firm about it, it's less likely to happen. So I think that gives us the best chance and have our region lead the way for all 8 regions in the state. That gives all of our parishes a voting right. So I would make that motion to amend it to one member from each parish as the voting body.
So I have a motion on the table from Ruth Phillips for amended version of the voting body to include one member per parish at this time.
This is Tom Stevens. I'd second that.
And a motion from Tom Stevens for a second. Rachel, how do you want to do a vote? That's not usually what I do. I have a motion and a second.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might want to ask if there's more discussion. We do have a lot of time for discussion. If there's no more discussion that folks want to have about it, then we can move into the vote.
Rachel, yep, my bad. I should ask
okay.
I should ask for discussion. So
This is Jenna. This is Jenna with Larry Bankston's office. We represent the ARBC. We would certainly disagree with ARBC not being included in having that in that voting body. I mean, I think ARBC is very unique in that it is the governing body for drainage in multiple parishes, and to exclude them from something that is certainly within their authority, in which they have exceptional experience, and I don't think that that's I don't think that's right.
This is Bridget. I just want clarity that what was being introduced is just a recommendation for another structure, another governing body structure for membership structure to be entertained for a possible vote at this point. We're not voting on it at this time. We're just voting on the suggested recommendation for an alternative compilation of membership. Is this correct?
I don't know how to necessarily answer that, other than, we don't have state legislation that's adopted for us to actually choose how we're going to govern ourselves. So doing this in advance, to me, is a little bit putting the cart before the horse. However, if we want to show our legislators who are going to the legislative session that this is something that we're thinking about, we made this vote. I don't anticipate it could be binding in any way based on that there's no legislation for us to actually do it. So, I'm not an attorney, but I don't know if there's any on the call that can address that, but I'd say if this was at a council level and we have a resolution opposed to an ordinance is law, resolution say, look, this is what we want to do. If we can, I don't know if we can make that distinction. So I'll leave it up to somebody else that may have some thoughts.
Well, Ross is somewhat.
Can we ask you to unmute, please? Robert Joyner, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
This isn't anything that is binding. The only reason that I'm pushing the issue is because, as we indicated before, that the legislators that I spoke to and some other steering committee members echoed this, is that they wanted from us how we felt about the governing structure, so that when they were given the legislation to consider, they knew how we felt and what our recommendation was. It's too late, or at least it puts them behind the 8 ball if we wait until the legislative session starts, because there's so much going on. So for them to then try and scramble and see how we feel is not fair to them. When we have an opportunity like now to let them know ahead of time what our thoughts on this issue are. And again, that's why I put this on the agenda for consideration at this point. It's out of respect for our legislators' wishes that I put it on the agenda at this point. And I think we have a motion to amend what I'm doing or what I have put on the agenda. And a second for that motion to amend. So we would have to vote on that amendment, and then if a motion, or I'm sorry, a motion to adopt the amended would be appropriate at that point.
Ruth, let me ask you this, and I'm just speaking out, kind of thinking out loud here. Is your intent on the motion to have Region 7, I'm thinking as I'm speaking as I'm thinking, is your intent of the motion, as Steve's is, and Steve, you can jump in as well, to send official correspondence to the legislative delegation from Region 7 that expresses the voting body makeup for Region 7 to be considered during the legislative session as the legislation is crafted and adopted? Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, that is my intention. As Steve had said, I do not find that this is binding in any way, shape, or form, because we have not actually been gone through the proper process with the legislation. And part of backing off with Amit River Basin is not to be offensive, or the Pontchartrain Levee District to be offensive in any way, shape, or form. But to be able to pass this today with something that I think everyone can live with, could be modified going forward with future discussions when everybody brings all their players they should be at the table with voting rights or non-voting rights. But just to get us started in the right direction, because as we go into holidays, everything, we start having less meetings, stop seeing people. And so I'd hate to wait, we get into late January, February, and guess what? Right around the corner, everyone's getting into the sessions, and, we've kind of missed the ball a little bit. So I know it is putting the cart before the horse, but I think it's more of messaging and to show our agreement, at least in this region, as far as how we would like to see the voting structure.
And Tom, are you okay with that, I guess, explanation as your second?
Well, right now, the real to talk is towards the motion to amend this thing to eliminate ARBC and the Pontchartrain Levee District for now, and be sure that we at least go forward with a member from each parish. And that was the root of this whole thing, is to be sure that we have each parish represented by a vote on anything we do as a body. So I'm in line with Ruth for sure on what she's saying about the eventual governance thing. Right
Okay.
now, I'm speaking in favor of the motion to amend it.
Okay, just wanted to check, since we had that discussion, and I wanted to check with the person who made the motion and the person who made the second, just to make sure that we're all good. So thank you very much. So Rachel, I'm gonna turn it over to you now.
Thanks, everybody. And just FYI, I am not a parliamentarian, but my understanding of this process is that we have, the motion with a second for the amendment that had been suggested, I believe, by Ruth, and we just had some discussion about it. And so, this is the motion to amend the recommendation that was brought forward to change the proposed recommendation to be 13 voting members, 1 from each parish. And just want to clarify, I'm hearing that correctly, yes? Okay. So then we would go through each member affiliation and vote. So the options are yay, nay, abstain, which is typical. As a reminder, this is not voting to adopt that recommendation. This is voting to make that amendment. The secondary vote would come after this. Yes? Okay. Thank you, thank you. All right, so Ascension Parish.
Yay.
Thank you. East Baton Rouge.
Yay,
Thank you. East Louisiana is not present today. Iberville.
Yay.
Thank you. Livingston.
Yay.
St. Charles.
Yes.
St. Helena, do we ever have Major Coleman or Jeremy Williams showing? St. James Parish.
Yes.
St. John the Baptist.
I'm gonna abstain. I need to think about it.
St. Tammany.
Yes.
St. Jaboa.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
West Feliciana.
Yes.
Amite River Basin Commission. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I don't know if somebody else caught that. We have somebody with
Say
ARBC.
Nay, say nay.
Thank you. Karen Zito with Homeowners Association, Greater Baton Rouge.
Abstain.
Okay. And then I don't think we have Ronnie Carter or Kim Coates on the line. No.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, all right.
Yes. Ronnie
Thanks,
Carter.
Ron. Thank you. And then Ivy Matthew is another
Nay.
regional rep.
Sure, nay.
So, all right, do some quick math here. And all the way through differential equations. Sometimes I can't add.
I'm sure you can abstain unless you have a personal conflict with the, correct me if I'm wrong.
that's generally correct.
That's certainly not correct.
I'm going to be I'm going to have an honest moment with y'all. I'm not entirely sure. Is there an individual on the call who might have more information about that?
This is Larry Banks, and certainly there's no requirement that you must vote, period, one way or the other. That's not required. Under Robert's rules or under Mason's, either one.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah, this is Earl. Unless there's a specific set of rules which would allow you or which would require you to explain your abstain, then I think you're allowed to abstain because we don't have a set of voting rules that set forth a criteria. So.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, motion passes on the amended, was it Rachel? Are we to carry?
That's right. So 11 yays, 2 nays, 2 absentees, and then also a couple folks who are not voting in this.
Okay. And do we have another vote coming up?
I think that the only other thing that we've got to do before we do that, if the steering committee is ready, is open it up for public comment. Is there any more discussion from the steering committee before we move into public comment for the vote on the amended recommendation?
I see a hand up.
It might be for a public comment, so we'll,
Okay.
okay. So just a couple of things. We'll create a facilitators call us a container. So if members of the steering committee or public would like to make a comment, we ask that you unmute your microphone. As always, you can always put your public comment in the chat pod as well. But if you're speaking, we ask that you keep it to 3 minutes or less. That is not because we don't want to hear from you, but simply because we want to try to keep with the agenda and the amount of time. So, and Nora, I see that your hand is raised. Please feel free to come off mute.
Hi, yes, I just had a couple of comments. One is I'm a little confused on the structure. I unfortunately had to miss the last meeting, but I'm curious what exactly the voting will be voting on. I thought this was more of a planning type of body and not necessarily projects. But the other concern I have is that having everything that's a vote by political individuals that are subject to their political terms of office and can change and do change, that there is not a sense of continuity and regional continuity and having any cross-region representatives that can give more continuity. I've seen the politics in Ascension Parish around drainage and the lack of the elected officials taking into account what the wishes of their constituents are. And I just have concern for that.
Thanks, Nora. The question that you'd asked Nora about, I think, this is just a recommendation that the steering committee will make specifically to OCD. Are there any other public comments? I'm trying to go through here and make sure I'm not missing any hands that are raised.
We can move on.
Thanks, Ross.
How are we doing on time, by the way, based on the agenda?
We are lovely on time. We actually have, we're about 17 or so minutes ahead of the amount of allocated time that we had for this section.
Okay, perfect. So do we have a motion and a second? Or does Ruth need to make the motion again to actually vote? Or is that amended motion good enough?
This is Earl. I make a motion that we vote on the recommendation as amended.
There you go. All right. Can I have a
Second it.
Who was that? I'm sorry.
Fred.
Fred got the second. Earl has the first. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote.
All righty, so exact same procedure that we just used. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order, then we'll go to our regional reps. So Ascension Parish.
Yay.
East Baton Rouge.
Yay.
East Louisiana. Oh, not present. Iberville. We just had John. Are you still there, John Clark? Saw it go off mute and then back on. I'm gonna see if he figures out AV and then we'll come back to him. Livingston.
Yay.
St. Charles.
Yay.
St. Helena. Not present still. St. James.
Yay.
St. John Baptist.
Dean.
St. Tammany.
Yes.
St. Jaboa.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
West Feliciana.
Yes.
Amy River Basin Commission.
Hey.
Homeowners Association of Greater Baton Rouge. Do we have Karen any longer? And I do see a yay from John Clark in the chat pod. Thank you for utilizing that other method. That is also okay for our steering committee members to state their vote in the chat pod. I'm not seeing Karen in the list anymore. So Pontchartrain Conservancy.
Yes.
Ronnie. Thanks, Ronnie. And then Ivy Matthew.
Nay.
All right, let's do a quick count here. So we got 11.
All right, motion passes. And I guess I can ask CRPC, Rachel, for some homework, maybe draft a letter for us on behalf of the, and obviously we have a little time to do this, and not something you need to do before Thanksgiving, but put on the radar, draft a letter for our state legislative delegation, just reiterating the type of governance structure we may want based on legislative. I don't know how to word it right now, but you know what I'm getting at, so I'm leaving it at that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ross. And I think the mechanism that we've used in the past is that we provide that recommendation and it goes to OCD. So we haven't had those interactions with legislators. We'll put together that draft and then we will send that out to everybody based on conversations we had today. So we'll just make sure that there's no errors in any of it. And then we certainly encourage y'all to be able to take that to your legislators if that's the preferred option.
Rachel, this is Ivy, and when we're drafting this, hopefully we will include that it wasn't unanimous, because I do have some objections. I didn't voice them all today, but that when we do, that we include concerns.
I appreciate that, Ivy, and we will provide something similar to this. So this is from our provisional governance recommendation. And so we record who is in favor, who is not, who wasn't there. And then we'll have the abstentions as well. So certainly I will have the public comments accessible through this recording as well as our meeting minutes as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, you know what? I feel like this is a region building exercise. You know, we have issues to work through, and we do it as a region. And it's just a good example how we can move forward as a region, you know, everyone working together. So appreciate, you know, the collaboration.
And Ross, this is Ivy. With that said, though, I guess the question I posed to the steering committee is, what stops everybody now to collaborate across lines right now? And it's more maybe a rhetorical question than that needing an answer right now, but I will challenge the group to say, you know, I'm sure the may have a project that needs to impact one or two parishes. What's stopping us from collaborating and crossing the line, then sharing it with the region to do a tabletop exercise so we can see, because my concerns are, you know, continuing the same powerful people at the table and we're wanting different results if we're going to do the same behavior. So that's one part of my fear. So anyway, I just throw that as a challenge to the group.
No, and I think that's a great, you know, point to be made. And, you know, as we move forward, ourselves as a region through the legislative process, starting in the spring. And, you know, by the time we actually adopt what our voting membership is going to be like, we're going to have these conversations for the months ahead. So this is, again, just a very first step in a very, very long marathon. So appreciate
Right, but and I'm glad the way you phrased it. Sorry for being so rude. So I really would challenge, you know, I'm not at the table with whatever drainage or whatever issue, but I would challenge somebody to take the lead and go through a tabletop exercise just to see and start to think about who else should be at the table, because again, you know, the powerful and the well-connected, we get the same results. So we need the diversity, because, you know, that's my concern. The other part, where's the diversity and inclusion? So anyway, that's the challenge for before the session starts.
Thanks, Ivy. Okay. Okay, y'all. The homework that has been assigned, that will be completed ASAP, perhaps before the Thanksgiving break next week. But I think that we've got some meaty stuff to move into, which is the Region 7 modeling update. And so Sam Crampton, if you are on, please feel free to go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. We go ahead and share this, start the PowerPoint. So the banner for Zoom is getting in the way, so I can't see. Okay, right, here we go. So can you all see my screen good there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so I know I've probably met a lot of you already, but for those of you that don't know me, I'm Sam Crampton with Dewberry. So I'm the project manager for the Region 7 modeling effort. So things are well underway now. We've got a lot of resources onto this. So we're making a lot of progress, both on the modeling and the survey collection efforts. So this just gives a little overview of what I'm going to talk about today. And so the current scope of work, there's these are the main topics that are part of the contract. So the first is the data gap analysis, which is collecting any sort of data that's occurred since we did the initial effort there. And then the topographic and bathymetric survey. This is where we have our survey crews led by Fortin Tablada are out there throughout the region at the moment collecting the data. Primarily, their focus has initially been Ascension Parish in the Marpole region, as well as the Biosera Thompson. They're now in the AMET and will also be moving over to Liberty Biotrafuncta shortly. And a lot of the schedule there is also tied to the LIDAR schedule. So we know some of the areas where the LIDAR hasn't been collected, particularly the northeast part of the region. That's going to be a little bit further behind because of the LIDAR. So they're sliding the survey back and prioritizing where we have everything we need. So the hydrometeorology and hydrography, that's well underway, where we're recreating observed storms that are going to really be the test to prove how accurate the models are. And then the hydrologic model development, that is due to be completed next winter, along with the hydraulics, so the hydrology of the models that are going to model all the rainfall runoff. The hydraulics are going to be what routes that through the HUC system there and gives us our flood elevations. And then we have the meteorological forcing, which is where we're going to be calibrating it to ensure that the model gives reasonable results, so that we know that if the model works good for, say, the August 2016 flood, that gives us a high level of confidence that when you use these models for design, that you'll get good results there too. Coastal and flood transition, this is a big task here, sort of looking at the different boundaries driven by the coastal flooding. And then there'll also be the documentation, the reporting and the quick guides, which are planned for spring of 2023 is going to be the final delivery there. And the data management plan as well, which is how all the data is going to be stored and made accessible. So the communication strategy, we're going to give regular updates at the steering committee meetings like we are now and have previously. And we're going to have detailed information for their milestone deliveries. So once we get to a key point in the model, that will be a good time to share. We're planning to do email updates and newsletters, as well as parish level meetings or even community level meetings as needed. So we're looking at starting this in the first quarter of 2022. And what we really want to be able to do is just get more input from the local communities and potential users. I know we've reached out to every community already, and many were able to share good information for us, but we want to continue to do that, to keep you really updated of what's going on, so that we can really sort of help tailor the models and that to meet your future needs. And so we're going to be reaching out, we're scheduled to reach out further in December and January, but by all means feel free to reach out to us with anything pressing up front, and we'd be happy to discuss everything with you. So just to give an update on the AMET watershed, so this is one because there was the initial effort that was completed a couple of years ago. So that one, the project report's out there. So we are utilizing that model, and further refining it. So that model was primarily focused with the Amite and the Comite rivers. So the main rivers. Is what we're really doing now is twofold. One, we're adding detail in areas that were previously not studied in high detail. And we're also, now that there's the LWIs and overall has got some new guidance for modeling methodologies, we're now making the Amite model consistent with the latest and greatest guidance for modeling methodology. So some of these updates that we're doing, we're working with HNTB that are representing EBR as well as Ascension. And so we've got a lot of data being shared back and forth. We was very careful not to duplicate efforts there. And so we're sharing data back and forth to avoid duplication there. And the models that we're going to be using are going to be the latest versions of the Corps of Engineers HEC suite. We've seen a lot of improvements in the recent releases that have resulted in shorter run times as well as increased model stability, which is going to make the models a lot easier for the end users. So the current watersheds and contract status. So the Bayou Sarah Thompson, the Lake Maurepas, the Liberty Biotriffuncta, those watersheds, we were given notice to proceed in July, and they are scheduled to be completed in March 2023. The Amite watershed, we received notice to proceed late September 2021, and so that will be May 2023 is the schedule for that watershed to be finished. And I'll give you an update on the other four as well in a second. So the progress to date, so one of the changes that are potentially going on at the moment, there has been some discussion of the naming convention. I know we previously discussed that in one of these meetings. And so all 7 consultants were requested to provide some updated recommendations. And so we provided them recommendations last week. We presented them to the LWI leadership team and the TDQ. And so we're proposing a system based off the geographic name information system, which would be recognizable names versus alphanumeric codes for the river names. And so one thing we'd just like to ask, in the event that these recommendations are adopted, and also just for documenting things in the model, if you have any local names that differ from the geographic name and information system that you would like us to use or take into consideration, please share this with us. This can also include local names for streams that do not have an official GNIS name. And so you can view the official GNIS names in the National Map Viewer. And so if you have anything that differs from that, please bring that to our attention. We can potentially take that into consideration if these recommendations are to be adopted. So the progress to date, as mentioned, with the Maurepas watershed, our surveys are about 70% complete in the Ascension Parish part of that, and they expect to be completely finished with the survey effort this month in both Ascension and the Tangipahoa portions of the watershed. So the hydrometeorology, we've currently evaluating the spatial and temporal rainfall across the region and processing that so that it can be read into the hydrologic model so that you have these observed storms that you can run for like what if scenarios, and we're also primarily using them for calibration.
Hager.
So progress to date, just hit on this already. So there's various levels of data out there in the watershed. Some are better represented by gauging information. So, for example, Bayou Sarah Thompson is very underrepresented. We don't have any gauges there. The Amite is probably the best represented of all of them by USGS streamflow gauges. Maurepas got a lot of gauges. Liberty Biotriffuncta's got 8. And even the Boca Chica, which is very rural, has 4 gauges there. So we're going to use all this data to validate and ensure the models are accurate. It's just a little overview of the QC process. We have a very rigid QC process in place, and we're sort of more than open to any suggestions that anyone has. So we got the continual, like individual self checks as we're performing the models. We have detailed checks, and then we have a formal independent technical review, which is being performed by FTN Associates as a subcontractor. And then overall, there's the TDQ that's going to be performing reviews alongside their consultants, West and Taylor. And so there's very detailed quality controls to ensure it's both technically accurate as well as consistent across the region and across the state. So the future task orders, the Tick-4, Tangipahoa, Lower Pearl and Boga Chitto watersheds. We do have the contract in place for all 4 of these now. However, we don't have notice to proceed at this time. And so we're anticipating to receive a notice to proceed for these ones in January or February next year, so not too far away. And these ones are going to be largely dependent on the LiDAR availability, particularly the Lower Pearl and Boga Chitto and the upper regions of Tick-4 and Tangipahoa Hucks. Them ones, the LiDAR's acquisition's underway, and we're expecting to have that next year. So that's really one of the big things driving the schedule there. So as soon as we receive notice to proceed, these ones are going to be under a 20-month schedule. And we had the same milestones and workflows of the previous watersheds there. And so we are doing everything we can to expedite the 4 watersheds we're underway with already, and get them ahead of schedule so that we can then put additional resources on these 4 and ensure they don't get delayed because of LiDAR. With that, be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have on this, on the modeling efforts.
Thanks, Sam. And just as a reminder, steering committee members, feel free to come off mute. For folks that are not steering committee members, please put your questions in the chat pod.
Sam, this is Dietmar.
Hi, Dietmar.
Yeah, you're aware about the extensive work that we did in the Mid River Basin, with USGS and others, DOTD included, of the water, of the 2016 event of the high water marks. I think that you probably, I don't know, you have seen, I think you have.
Yeah.
We have a full report on that, and I know there's some questions about the legitimacy of some of those, but we got about 400 high water marks in that document. Also, as part of our effort at the Mid River Basin of doing a inundation map for the whole basin that is ongoing, we have also upgraded the hydrography quite substantially. And so there are bits and pieces that I saw that you are mentioning. Of course, you're talking about in generality with everybody else, but in terms of the Mid River Basin, we have done quite some work already on some of that and still doing it. For our objective is not modeling. Our objective is to develop basically a dynamic map or interactive map that shows the flooding or the inundation in the basin. I mean, we're looking at the whole basin. So I think you might are aware of some of that. I want you to be reminiscent about it because there might be some information that you guys can use.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly the high water marks, we have all of that data and we have that consolidated, and we did a very detailed review on all the high water marks, and then obtained some additional ones from all the USGS gauges. And so we have all of that data consolidated and quality controlled, and we classified them by like high, medium and low confidence, because some of them, obviously, high water marks can be hard to identify sometimes after storms, and you've got some disagreements between adjacent points. So we have all that information. I don't know as I have the final inundation map that you guys developed, but by all means, feel free to send that our way, and that's another useful tool for validating what we're working on.
Thanks. And we do have a question in the chat pod, Sam. So Will the model include West Shore Lake Pontchartrain levee and associated drainage structures, as well as any new structural features that are expected to be built in the near future?
Right, absolutely. So what we're doing with that, we have reached out to the Corps. We're waiting for some information back. So the models are going to represent what is on the ground now at the time of the modeling. However, we understand that project's going in. So what we're doing is we're putting the foundation in. So for example, where that West Shore levee is scheduled to be placed, we are going to take that alignment from the Corps of Engineers. We're going to bring that into our model, and we're going to enforce that alignment into our model so that as soon as it's built, then it's a very easy modification. The framework's already in there for the levee. You just literally need to just change it from the existing ground elevation to the new levee. We'll have all the placeholders in there where any sort of interior drainage pumps and stuff like that may be associated with it, or inlets and that can all be added to the model. So we're certainly keep putting all the framework in place so that when that's built, we can include it in the existing conditions.
Mr. Crampton, this is John Clark with Iberville Parish. I was just curious how far y'all may be, how deep you may get up the Bayou Manchac watershed. For example, as you go further west, Ascension Parish has the Frog Bayou floodgate, which controls the Bluff Swamp drainage area. And I don't know if y'all are aware that that floodgate is there. And also too, Iberville has the Alligator Bayou floodgate, which controls the Spanish Lake Basin. And, you know, I don't know if you're taking that into account, and will your data and model projections reflect that?
Yeah, we definitely, even with the current model, we do have the Alligator Bayou gates in there. So we have it as a gate so that any future modelers can open and close that gate as they please. We was not able to obtain any kind of operation manual for it or any operating rule curves. I'm not sure if that exists, but if it does, that's something that we could actually program the rules in. And what was the first gate you mentioned there?
No, I'm not doing anything. I'm just listening.
Hey, Bob Jacobson, can you please put yourself on mute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I guess it just moves around with a little box.
For Clyde.
I'm not saying anything.
Can you put our friend Bob? Thank you.
Yeah. So there was, you mentioned two gates there, the Alligator Bayou one, and what was the first one?
It's Frog Bayou, which is controls a lot of water in behind the swamp. The Bluff Swamp Basin in Ascension Parish.
Right.
And I guess if you did LiDAR for that area in Bluff Swamp, you know, using how far the water may go if the gate's closed, well, that wouldn't be reflective, and thus projections about flood risk, you know, may not be accurate. I don't know. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I will definitely check that. The LiDAR that went into the AMEET model was captured in the spring of 2018. So I know we definitely had the Alligator Bayou. Let me check on the Frog Bayou whether that one was included, and we can take a look and definitely make sure that's in there for the future. And who is that one owned and operated by? The Frog Bayou one, do you know who owns and operates that?
Fish and Frog Bayou Locks is Ascension Parish, but I know that Iberville also has a system over there, so I'm not sure exactly which one. HNTB should have given you the most recent LiDAR modeling that they did, because we did a cut in the road for Alligator Bayou. If not, certainly reach out to our team, and that should be accessible to you with all the flooding events that we had this year.
Okay, sounds good.
Could probably.
Oh, Fred, you're on mute. I didn't know.
I'll just tell you, I think HNTB has that data because we asked them to look at that area also, since it drains a good portion of our parish. We want to know what that impact is. So you ought to be able to get that from the HNTB too.
Yeah, and Jeff is in the process of compiling all of that. He's pulling everything together to ship over to us, and we are probably about 3 weeks from shipping over all the survey. We was going to wait until we have all the survey together and then send it back. So yeah, Jeff, I'll double check that Jeff's including that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam with Dewberry? Okay, got something in the chat. I think this is a comment. So the 2018 LiDAR will be woefully out of date in respect to all of the infill from new development.
Yeah, it's definitely everything. It's always a moving target with LiDAR, unfortunately. But the key thing is with the models, they are very easily upgradable. They're certainly living models. With it all being like GIS based now, it makes it a lot easier to update these things in the future. And so, yeah, that is always a challenge that you're dealing with a moving target, as we definitely see some major differences between the 2018 LiDAR and the previous LiDAR that I think was 1999. It was drastically different.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Sonora, for the comment.
Yeah, I just want to thank Sam and Dewberry, and every time we have a speaker that comes on, or discussions that we have that's going on in Region 7, definitely appreciate it and love the updates. So thank you.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, and just echoing thanks for Dewberry and for everybody who participated in today's discussion. There's nothing else left on the agenda, y'all, and I'm not hearing any other questions for Dewberry. Everybody should have their contact information from previous times that they've spoken with us. So if there are additional questions that come up later on, you can reach out directly. We will be sending out the slides from today's presentation, including Dewberry's, as well as the other homework items and to-dos. So I don't think there's anything else on the agenda. Go ahead, Ruth.
Do we need to adopt the minutes from the October 19th meeting?
That's the remaining thing. That's it.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Ruth, was that a motion?
Sure, that was a motion.
And who was the second? Somebody was just speaking.
I'll second it.
Yeah,
Fred.
who's that? Fred, got it. Thank you. So motion a second. Any discussion? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Well, I think that's all that we have, y'all. And I know that we are waiting on OCD for some next steps. And so I think unless OCD says otherwise, we might take a bit of a respite, because I was looking at the calendar and there's really only about 3 working weeks, full working weeks left to this year. So certainly want to encourage folks to take a break and take a rest. I know that things have been really nonstop. So with that being said, we'll be in contact for our next meeting, certainly with any other items or updates. And then if something comes up from Dewberry, from OCD, from any of the folks that we want to share with this group, and we need to call a meeting, then we will do that. Otherwise, we will be sending stuff via email through the end of this year. So thank you all so much for your time today. Cannot thank you enough. I hope you get to enjoy the weather, and we will be in touch soon.
Thanks to CRPC, OCD, everybody who makes this show happen. So, and all the regional steering committee members that, attend. So glad to see y'all here. If you know somebody who would make this meeting, who is a regional steering committee meeting, maybe shoot an email, make sure they're here next time. I'd appreciate that. I'm sure they would too. I know things are crazy and busy this time of year to end, try and get stuff done before the end of the year. So again, appreciate everybody being here and all the hard work CRPC and OCD does. So with that, anything else?
Is Earl, motion to adjourn.
Got a second?
Second by Bridget.
I will see y'all later. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Days.